All right, so yesterday was a day at Evil Corp. It started out with my boss showing up early and me being put into intensive hours of training for something that I didn't think that I was going to take over, followed by a visit to the executives, followed by another move to get even more technology out to another office. By the time I got to the end of the day yesterday, I was absolutely and completely toast. But at some point during the day, I was reading something on my phone about a person who was enticed into taking a job, leaving a fully remote job to take a job that would offer less money but offer more flexibility. And it's something that a lot of us truly want in life. No one wants to sit in an office 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And it's been about a year and a half since they took away my remote work for no reason other than they can. And in the last 3 months, many corporate workers at Evil Corp have become deeply dissatisfied with decisions to force them back into the office. And you're talking about people who are driving up to 2 hours each way into the office for no other reason other than they decided to change things around. And if you're like me, you don't like being in the office, you don't like working, you don't like anything about Evil Corp because it's not about the work. It's always about the control, the surveillance, the holding your life um, in the balance. Because loneliness is one thing, not having a job is a recipe for a complete and total life disaster. And as work gets harder and harder to find, people tell me all the time, it's like, you're miserable here. Why are you staying here? And I'm like, do you think I have a choice? Do you think there's a lot of open positions for someone with my level of education inside of technology? No. I've been turned down at least 50 times when they find out that I don't have a STEM degree. Does the job require for me to have a STEM degree? No. It's just HR says so. And when HR says so, you can ace the interview, but when they go and they check your education and they see four liberal arts degrees, they're like, you're not qualified to do this job. And I'm like, I've been doing this job since I was a teenager. Something I had to tell my boss yesterday because he seems to treat me like a complete idiot all the time. But I looked at him and I'm like, okay, I've been doing this since I was a kid. And he's still of the mentality that everyone is stupid. But with that said, what else? Oh gosh, I had too many really intimate moments with coworkers yesterday that I don't really. I spent hours last night trying to decipher what the body movements, what she's saying with her body language to me because let's put it this way. My last conversation with this high powered executive woman was, I can't wait to see you. And I'll tell you guys this much, that doesn't happen to a guy like me very often. All right, so let's get into our monologue. I took a massive pay cut because I believe the trade off was freedom, the kind of freedom that lets you breathe between meetings and actually live your life. But on day one, they shoved me into a cubicle and told me remote work doesn't start until after 90 days. Like that was some fine print I just forgot to read. It wasn't a job, it was a sentence. I wasn't about to serve time for a lie I didn't tell. So I left because if I'm going to be broke, I'd at least like to be free. That is something uh, I don't even know how to explain it. Being broke and being miserable at a job for some reason, while I was reading this, I was getting those vibes of that old lady at Wells Fargo this past year who moved on to the next, uh, what do you call it? The next chapter in her life while she was sitting in a cubicle, and nobody noticed that she'd passed on for days until the smell became apparent that someone wasn't too springtime fresh in the office anymore. And I feel like Evil Corp, that's where we're all heading. They're going to put us in tiny little beige offices and wait until they can't use this anymore, until they go and check on their battery and the battery no longer supports human life. And it's unfortunate because you only get one life. Every morning when you wake up, that's the only time you're ever going to see that day. It is 4:23:25 today. It is 7:09 a.m. And never again in my entire life will this moment ever exist again. And to imagine yourself sitting in a job that you can't stand for, I don't know, 40, 50 years of your life, however long you get based on the poor nutrition and stress from your job. Because I could feel it in my guts yesterday. The stress of having to be forced into training that I needed to do 3 years ago because it's become painfully obvious that I needed more and more training. Like last Friday, I was working with the server that needed to be brought up. Today, I gotta work on the hardware for that, and then I've got to do more training, network training. I'm supposed to be setting up some wireless uh, network devices for the office. And then I got to figure out why the network isn't working at the executive's location. For some reason, it just stopped working yesterday, and I gave them a workaround, but a workaround isn't going to last very long. I just needed them not to be there so I could work in silence because the last thing you want to do is work on a complicated problem while someone is staring at you, tapping their watch, telling you, I need to get back to work, millennial Stame. How long is this going to take? That is the most awkward experience of any technology worker in the world, is having someone looking at you, wondering why it's not fixed already. But with that said, let's get into talking point number one. Hybrid isn't a perk, it's the new bare minimum. I believe there are at least 1,000 people at my job that will tell you that's absolutely true. Many companies are marketing hybrid work as if it's a benefit, when in reality, it's become the baseline expectation for a post pandemic workforce. When they retract that flexibility without warning, it reveals their real priorities: control over trust. As I said in my opening monologue, it's not about having you in the office, it's about being able to stare at you, look at you like a bug in a jar while they tap the glass and ask, why are you not being more productive? It's hard to be able to have that kind of power over a person that's sitting at home in their jammies with no shoes on, wiggling their toes. When you have them in the office, when you have them in dress clothes, when you have them where you can see them, as I like to call the offices, the fishbowl, because it's just one long floor of thousands of people with no privacy. It reminds me of that prison where the guards can see every single cell from their watchtower in the middle. So it's designed in a way, I forgot what the name of it, but it's a circular prison with one large tower in the middle of it. And from every single cell, the guards can look at you every second of the day to make certain that you understand that there's no escape. And that's how a lot of corporate buildings feel: clear glass walls. and you know that they're looking, and you know that they're asking, why not more productivity? All that's left is to walk by, see that you're on your cell phone, and tap the glass and say, and point at their watch. Like, we know you're on the clock, you're getting paid. Now work harder, my slave. Talking point number 2: the emotional cost of a pay cut for a lie. Taking 35% pay cut is more than financial. It's a bet on a better quality of life. When a company lies about flexibility after you've already made that sacrifice, it's a betrayal that hits deep. Workers aren't just leaving jobs, they're leaving broken trust. This is what happened to me in my last review. And the reason why, after I'm done in the office, there's no more talking to me. If I'm not sitting in the office, I'm not available. That's the way my attitude changed. You're going to treat me like a thug, and guess what? Treating your workers like criminals. Guilty till proven innocent, it doesn't work. It just causes people to want to look for a better situation. Because we're all doing time in this world. Whether you believe that or not, we all go to work and we do our prison sentence every day. Remember what I call America: the work release program. Every morning, the warden opens the gate. We come out. We go do our 8-hour sentence of hard labor, a place where we don't want to be, surrounded by unsavory characters in every direction, people you can't trust, people that you don't know what they're thinking, people that have ulterior motives when they speak. That's why I say that every interaction at Evil Corp is that of NPCs talking with each other. And yesterday I had the most intense NPC moment I think I have ever had. I stared at large gray eyes that seemed to peer right through me. And in it, you saw the lack of life. Every spoken word in that office was NPC. It was a chat bubble above my head, empty, void of any life. It was just two people in a bad situation who were making noises at one another, making eye contact, but well aware that they would rather be somewhere else. And I think that's most of our interactions with our coworkers, with our family, with our alleged friends. I think that most of us understand that this life is a joke. There is no real connection. There's no third space. It's you, it's work, it's home. And if you want to make people unsuccessful at life, that's how you do it. You make certain that there's nothing else. It's sitting here, me at home on the couch, waiting to go back to Evil Corp. I don't come home to relax. I come home to power down. There's no relaxing in this world. These paychecks aren't about relaxation. They're about coming home to cell block B and powering down, knowing full well that your power down cycle is limited to when Evil Corp doesn't need you. That's how I feel every single day of my life that I have to work. Not one single second of my entire life have I wanted to go to work. But it's a necessary evil that we all have to participate in, that we all lie to ourselves and to the people around us, because no one wants to see Johnny Sixpack sitting in his clear cell at work looking miserable. You have to smile. You have to pretend. You have to be in the workplace theater mood all day long. Because as I've been told on many, many occasions throughout my entire life, if you're not smiling, you're not in uniform. And if you're not in uniform, guess what? That's going to be a write-up. And yesterday I was walking with one of the HR people, and we were in the parking lot. I offered to go buy her a Starbucks. So we could talk. And she'd already been talking to the office president very, very quietly. When the conversations that you need to have with another coworker involve having to be in the parking lot, whatever you're talking about is probably not good for Evil Corp. In fact, yesterday I was with this person when one of the technology support analysts contacted me, and that was the day before. That was on Monday, and all he heard was the office president say, "Meet me in the parking lot in 10 minutes." Of course, it unsettled him because that's all he heard. He had no other context other than that. So yesterday morning, as soon as I got to work, he messaged me and it's like, "Hey, can we talk?" And I said, "Uh-oh. This is a parking lot conversation." Talking point number 3. Bait and switch job listings are the new red flag. Remote optional, hybrid encouraged, flexible hours. These phrases are being weaponized in job listings to lure desperate or burnt out workers into traditional office roles. If a company isn't transparent from day one, they're not a safe place to build your future. And no evil corporation is a safe place to build your future. There are no careers in this world anymore. There's just gig work. There's the hustle and the grind and the necessity to work multiple jobs. If you think that you have job security, you're lying to yourself. I've seen them walk people out of the office after 10 years of loyalty without question. Oh, you're a layoff. And then suddenly there's another person making half of what they were paying them sitting in their chair hours, days later. And you wonder, it wasn't about them. It was about needing someone who was a little bit more open and agreeable. Someone who is going to embrace the corporate culture in a way that the person who was, I'm going to say, violently removed, because when you lose a 100 plus $1,000 job just like that, there's no preparing yourself for it. In fact, I was talking to the boss yesterday, and he just looked at me and he said, "Millennial Steam, that was gangster last week when they walked out that VP, wasn't it?" And I just kind of looked at him like, "Yeah, but I saw them interviewing for his position the week before. They'd already made their decision and pushed that person out." And with layoff, you don't need progressive discipline. You don't need a reason. HR just calls and says, "We're laying you off." And then they recreate the position in a different iteration of the same job, different task, different title. But basically, you're doing the same thing. The job of 5 people for one low wage. And that's the way it happens because they don't tell you, and I've been in these interviews before, they don't really tell you when you apply to a job, there's a job title, there's a pay bracket, right? Based on experience or based on what you can negotiate. But the reality is that even as a senior level worker with 3 to 5 years of experience, they're going to try to start you down here. Remember, entry level wages with senior level experience. That's their game. And if you come into that job and you're thinking, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to be in office maybe once or twice a month." No. When I was working at Insight, they were very selective about the people that they let do remote work. I wasn't one of those people. I didn't have the right attitude. And it was well known that I didn't want to be there. Now, the people who nodded and said yes and repeated corporate slogans, those people got treated better. Who was the hardest working person in the office? You better believe it was me. In fact, my supervisor even walked up to me and said this: "I know you don't like me, but you're damn good at what you do." And I was just like, I didn't even respond. I just rolled my eyes at him, and it was obvious that I I was too good for this job. And he acknowledged that from day one. They hired me, and he's like, I don't understand what you're doing here. And I'm like, you think I want to be sitting here at this call center making $15 an hour? Look at yourself, man. You're a 40-year-old man sitting here for God only knows how many years with no career path. And you're going to pretend to be happy? You're a 40-year-old man that still needs to have a roommate because you can't afford to pay your rent. That's not a place a 40-year-old man should be. Anyhow, I've got to get ready to leave for Evil Corp, so I got to clean myself up. And then I am going to go and sit down and do my sentence for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. You guys are probably seeing this sometime next week. And I hope everyone has a great day. And it's time to get hump day over with.